He had a lot to live up to going into the 1928 Olympics. He'd spent the 1920s dominating the distance running scene, setting world records in everything from the 1500 to the 10,000 meters, winning 121 straight races and earning 9 medals within his first 2 Olympic Games. But all that racing had taken its toll, and the year before his third Olympic appearance was plagued by rheumatism, Achilles tendonitis, and his first defeats in years. He thought about skipping the upcoming Olympics altogether, but ultimately decided to give them one final shot. Today is Monday, July 28th, 2025, and on this day in 1928, flying Finn Paavo Nurmi's third and final Olympic Games began, this time in Amsterdam. In today's episode, we'll learn how Nurmi took the running world by storm at the 1920 and 1924 Olympics, and learn how his 3 events at the 1928 Games played out. I'm your host, Running Up That Hillary, and you are listening to Today in Running History. Paavo Nurmi was born in Finland in 1897 and was the oldest of 5 children. As seems to be the case in so many of these early 20th century stories that I've told recently, his father died when Nurmi was just 12 and he had to leave school to get a job and provide for his family. The family already lived in a pretty small apartment, but at this point they had to rent out the kitchen to another family and all live in a single room with just one wooden couch and a couple of cots. Paavo Nurmi would live in that home with his mother and siblings until 1932, throughout his entire Olympic career. In the year 2000, the Sport Museum of Finland bought that little apartment and recreated what it would have looked like in the 1920s. You can actually visit it if you ever happen to be in Nurmi's hometown of Turku, Finland. But anyways, when Paavo Nurmi was 15, he read about fellow Finn Hans Kolemainen, who had just won 3 golds and 1 silver medal at the 1912 Olympics in Stockholm in the 5,000, 10,000, and cross-country races. It was at this point that Nurmi began to run. 2 years later, at the age of 17, he won his first ever race, which was 3,000 meters. Paavo Nurmi joined the army shortly after the Finnish Civil War of 1918 and stood out among his fellow servicemen in just about every athletic competition. Instead of marching with a rifle and sand-filled backpack, Nurmi would complete the marches by running. He was given additional freedom to train for the upcoming Olympic trials on his own, and that spring broke his first Finnish national record, the 3,000 meters in a time of 8:36.2. Paavo Nurmi won multiple events at the trials that summer, and before he knew it, he was headed to Belgium to make his Olympic debut at the 1920 Games in Antwerp. The 5,000 meters was Nurmi's first event, and he finished both the semifinal and final in second place. He was beaten by Frenchman Joseph Guillemot, and that loss fueled Nurmi for the 10,000 meters 2 days later. Nowadays, there are no qualifying rounds for the 10,000 meters, as it is a long enough distance that running it twice in 2 days is likely to hinder performance across the board. But in 1920, they had no such qualms about athletes overdoing things, so they included a qualifying round for the 10K. Nurmi finished second in his heat with a relatively slow time of 33:46.3. Tired of finishing second, Paavo Nurmi came to the 10,000-meter final the following day ready to win. He began the race strong, running with Guillemot and the rest of the lead pack, but soon had to drop back. He then spent a few kilometers trying to catch back up to the lead group, and with just 1 kilometer to go, he finally had them in his sights. On the final curve of the bell lap, Nurmi surged ahead of Joseph Guillemot and took the win in 31:45.8. This was more than a minute faster than Nurmi's 10K PR heading into that race. At this point, Paavo Nurmi had a silver medal from the 5,000 and a gold medal from the 10,000. But he had one more event to go, the cross-country race. If you're thinking, wait, that's not an Olympic event, you are right, it isn't. But cross-country was briefly an event for 3 Olympics in the early 20th century. The race was about 8 kilometers long, and Nurmi not only won as an individual, he helped 2 of his countrymen, win the team cross-country title as well. When he returned from the Antwerp Olympics, Nurmi had 3 golds and 1 silver medal. He spent the next 4 years breaking world records in every single distance from the 1,500 to the 10,000 meters. And he became the only athlete in history to hold world records in the mile, the 5,000, and the 10,000 at the same time. No one did it before him, and no one has done it since. Before he knew it, it was time for the 1924 Olympics in Paris. And this is where things get wild. Paavo Nurmi won his qualifying heats in the 5,000 meters on Tuesday and the 1,500 meters on Wednesday. But the finals for the 2 events were both set for Thursday, with only 1 event between the 2. Oh yeah, and it was also the hottest day of the entire summer. The 1,500 meters was first, and Nurmi took the lead the moment the gun went off. At the halfway point, he was on pace for another world record in that distance, but because he would be running the 5,000 so soon afterwards, he decided to relax a bit. He finished first, just 1 second slower than his own world record. The 5,000 meters began just over an hour later, and this time, Nurmi had real competition. Fellow Finn Ville Ritola had just won gold in the 10,000 meters and 3,000 meter steeplechase, the former of which broke Paavo Nurmi's old world record. During the 5,000 meters, the 2 Finns pushed each other to the brink, and Nurmi won by just 0.2 of a second with a new Olympic record. Third place was a full 30 seconds behind the 2 Finns. Okay, so that is 2 Olympic gold medals within 1 hour. But neither Nurmi nor Ritola was finished, as they both still had the cross-country race and the 3,000-meter team race. The cross-country race was 2 days after the 1,500 and 5,000 double, and it was even hotter that day, with temperatures reaching a record 113 degrees. To make matters worse, the course was filled with noxious fumes from a nearby energy plant. Only 15 of the 38 competitors in that race finished at all, with Nurmi in first, Ritola in second, and a third Finn in 12th. Finland was one of only 3 teams to get a full 3 men across the finish line and won the team title. As the Finns celebrated their win, the Red Cross and local emergency services spent hours searching for the 23 runners who had passed out along the course. The next day was the 3,000-meter team race, and Nurmi and Ritola went into that one with an advantage. Most of the other runners were still in the hospital from the previous day's cross-country race. Nurmi finished first, Ritola finished second, and their teammate Elias Katz finished 5th. The Finnish team had once again won gold. So over the course of 1 week, Paavo Nurmi had won 5 gold medals, and Ville Ritola had won 4 golds and 2 silvers. Not too shabby. After the 1924 Olympics, Paavo Nurmi went on a tour of the United States and set a few more world records. But by the time he left America, Nurmi was beginning to experience burnout and injury after racing so frequently over the past 6 years. In 1926 and 27, Nurmi won less often and also lost his 1,500-meter world record. So when it was time for the 1928 Olympics in Amsterdam, Nurmi was not even sure he wanted to compete. And that brings us to July 28, 1928, exactly 97 years ago today, when the world gathered in the Netherlands for the opening ceremony of that year's Olympics. Even at this point, Nurmi reportedly threatened to withdraw from the 3 events in which he was scheduled to compete. Ultimately, Nurmi gave the Olympics one final shot. At the 10,000 meters on Sunday, he was able to pass longtime rival Ville Ritola at the last second, winning gold. At the 5,000-meter final a few days later, the 2 reversed roles, with Ritola taking gold and Nurmi silver. The final event for both of them was the 3,000-meter steeplechase. Ultimately, it was a third Finn who won, with Nurmi in silver and Ritola dropping out. And with his 12th Olympic medal secured, Nurmi told a Swedish newspaper that, quote, "This is absolutely my last season on the track. I'm beginning to get old. I have raced for 15 years and had enough of it." And that is all I have for y'all today. Thank you so much for listening. Please make sure to like, subscribe, comment, turn on alerts, follow, share, write a postcard to your grandparents telling them how much you love the podcast, and then join me tomorrow as we hear about one of the many bizarre and unique world records set by a Canadian runner. I'm your host, Running Up That Hillary, and this has been Today in Running History. And what is his last name? Okay, Nurmi's his last name. Okay, so I did that right. Should I just start this from the beginning or nah? I'll start it. What today is? All right. There's the intro music. Plagued with plagued by or plagued with? Is it Hans Colmanen? Oh gosh, Colmanen. Oh God, that's gonna be a bad one. I'm so sorry if anyone is Finnish, if anyone's from Finland. Okay. Hans Colmanen, who had just won 3 golds. No, Colmanen, that's, oh gosh, why? Okay. Finnish Civil War of, I didn't even put what year it was. That was just me ad-libbing, of 1918, so we can keep track of on where we are. All right. Guillermo. Nowadays, there are no qualifying rounds for the 10,000. God, this part's English. I can't even do that. Okay. Slower than his own world record. What the? I'm just gonna say by a Canadian runner, because then I can practice this before I record that episode. So let's just go ahead and start that over.